You're listening to the Governors Podcast, which is hosted by school governors for school governors and for all involved in or impacted by education governance. On the Governors Podcast, we have open, honest, and transparent discussions about governance in the UK education sector, sharing and providing insights into the realities of entering the boardroom, sitting around the governing board table, and leaning in. Okay, let's get into today's topic.
Well, it's a new year.
Yes.
And it's a new term.
Yes.
And someone's got a new job.
Yes, I do. I'm going to be that someone.
Okay, you tell us about your new job, because it's in the sector, but it's really, really interesting as well.
Yeah, it's super exciting and super aligned to governance and education. Because I am the new digital marketing executive at Governors for Schools. It's like, I want to say the perfect job, even though I don't like using the word perfect because it kind of puts things on a pedestal, but it's knowing that it's like so well packaged. Like it just pulls from everything that I've built over the past however many years, 5-6 years, in terms of my skill set. But then there's also so much growth opportunity as well.
Before you get into that, do you want to just summarize who Governors for Schools are for those who don't know?
That is a good thing to do, actually, because I've just come in with assumed knowledge. So Governors for Schools is an education charity that supports volunteers, people who are interested in becoming school governors or academy trustees. And they basically take care, or we basically take care of the matching aspect. So between individuals and schools or academies, or those in multi-academy trusts, if you're thinking of trust board level, because we do have a trustee recruitment service as part of our wider service offer. And so when we are supporting schools, it's based on vacancies, obviously, but also skill sets, what individuals are looking for from the volunteer perspective. And we have teams all up and down the UK. So we have a South team, we have a North team, we have a team that is designated around London, because obviously it's quite a large area to cover. So that has its own special team as well. And then I guess my role is part of the marketing and communications team, which works with all the different teams internally. So whilst if you were a partnerships manager, for example, you will be focused in assigned regions, whereas myself, I'm working across all the teams, different individuals in the wider Governors for Schools organization. So it's really exciting because I get to mingle with different people on different days, on different projects. I'm very much responsible for social media, or increasingly responsible for social media, because I started the role in December. So I've been in there, in about a week or two. It will be 2 months, which is kind of crazy that time has just whizzed by. But like, there are 2 communication and engagement managers who would have obviously been doing the social media outputs before myself. But that's one of my key responsibilities. And it's just a really exciting space to be in. I guess it's because like I've been a governor for so long, or it feels like so long, but it still excites me. And so to be able to have another hat that I can wear in the education governance space, I have another legitimate reason to talk about governance. And that's kind of weird to say, but it's like I have something else to kind of contribute to the space. So as well as being a governor, and the various roles that I have around that, I'm also supporting others in a different way. And then when I think of what we do together on the Governors Podcast, and then what we do with our other brands in terms of like the National Black Governors Network, or even the National Association for School and College Clerks, and then Education Governance Solutions, and then what I do from a transforming students perspective in terms of supporting younger governors or younger people to become governors and making governance more visible, more attractive, more accessible. It's like I just want to stay in governance and education in any way I can. So if another opportunity comes up, I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. So it was really nice to have this come along in the last quarter of 2022, which has kind of reinvigorated my love and passion for supporting others and serving others, but in a different way. And so I love that. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Things are definitely ramping up now. I've gone from feeling new to feeling quite integrated in what would seem to be a short space of time, but there's so much that's happened. It feels like I've been there longer than I actually have. So yeah, it's definitely a chapter that I am buzzing about, let's say. That's the word I've been using the most. I'm definitely buzzing. The team is great. The organizational culture is amazing. Very much from, if you experience governance for schools from the outside looking in, I can tell you as an employee now, being on the inside, it's like that at the core, in terms of people are very friendly, supportive, a lot of open communication, encouraging, just pulling together as a team. And coming from someone who I've worked in isolation for a long time, for over 10 years, straight out of A-levels. Being a private tutor, you work in isolation when you're working one-on-one. And so because that's predominantly what I've done for over a decade, being able to be a part of a team, it was natural for me to having a little bit of anxiety at first, because you just don't know what it's going to be like in terms of working with others on a daily, weekly basis. And it's just been a warm welcome, let's say. And so I enjoy it. Every day I open my laptop and I'm like, okay, what bomb's gonna hit? I only say that because I will plan out my day, and then being in marketing, it's like there's so much reactivity that's involved, but it fits with the kind of person I am. I like to stay on my toes. On my toes. I get bored easily. So I like the fact that there's no room for boredom here at all. It stays interesting. You don't have time for boredom. Everything is moving forward.
That's how I see governance, to be fair. I don't see it as boring at all. No. And people who don't know will look at you a bit strange. It's like when people say, what do you do? I sort of take a breath, and in my head I'm thinking, how am I going to package that response to summarize governance in a way that you're going to understand and that you get, rather than the usual, oh right, when they don't really understand what you're talking about.
That is so true. And I actually had someone ask me, just in my going about socializing in daily life, someone asked me, someone new who had never met me before, what do you do? But because I had this, I had already started this new role, I said digital marketing. It's the first time that I've ever been able to answer that question straight away, because I could just pick a hat. Whereas before, it's like, oh, I'm a private tutor, but I also do website designing, and I also am a public speaker, and I also do this and I do that and stuff. Because when you're an entrepreneur or when you're self-employed, you speak to the skill sets that you offer, not necessarily a title that you have in a wider organization. So that's actually something that I liked, or in that moment, just being able to say one thing. So even though I do a bunch of other things, it's like, okay, when I'm in those conversations and when that dialogue play comes up, what do you do? I'm going to pick the hat that is just one answer and straight away, because then I feel like it then encompasses everything else that I do. Because the moment I say digital marketing, if someone then wants to know more, then I can delve deeper into my skill sets and things like that. So I definitely enjoy the breathing aspect of my new role, where I can just
Mm-hmm.
inhale, exhale, and be like, this is my answer, rather than who am I talking to, what day is it, what time is it, okay, where what prospects does this lead to, or where will this conversation kind of be leveraged, or how can it be leveraged, or whatever. It's like, no, I'm picking this hat and this is the hat I'm wearing.
I think it's a really good topic for us to talk about today, because sometimes I think as governors, which again we both are, if anybody's hearing this for the first time, we can sometimes forget what goes on in the engine room of governance outside of, you know, those meetings. Like, you know, we could sit around the table and see a new governor appear.
Yeah.
But half the time we don't even think about how that governor was recruited, where they came from.
Of course.
We don't think about all those things. And like, I work in the space as well, operationally, as head of governance and company secretary for Ormiston Academies Trust on an interim basis. And, you know, it's I think it's the third largest trust in the country, and with over 40 academies.
Wow.
My inbox on emails is like
constant.
Oh my days. It's like, you know,
never ending.
It's never ending. And it's just a bombardment of, you know, things. And so when we have a policy that hits the governing board, the work that has gone on behind the scenes of that, you can't even begin to imagine. So, you know, like for you in your position, for a new governor to be recruited through Governors for Schools, you don't know what marketing efforts you've done that has attracted them, that has sort of drip fed into, and so I think
there's a process. Nothing just arrives. And I'm learning that. I think what this role has also shown me, even in a short space of time, but something that I know that will continue to evolve, is I will see my role as a governor differently, if that makes sense, or through a different lens, now that I'm working in an organization that very much is a part of that matrix of feeding governors into schools and also ensuring the retention as well. And just knowing that governors become governors through different routes, just like everyone travels different journeys into a different field of work, a different space, a different city that they live in, a different country that they choose to move into. Not everyone arrives in the same way. I think I've heard in your training sessions that you've talked about when you're coaching someone, about as long as you're moving forward, I will support you, whether you're crawling, whether you're walking, whether you're jogging, whether you're running, whether you're driving, whether you're flying. As long as you're moving forward, I can help you. But if you stand still, I cannot help you. So what I'm learning here is, like, some governors contact schools directly. Others contact a school and there is a vacancy, but it's not a vacancy that matches up with the person, the profile or the criteria of that person. Or it could be that they're in one locality, they're in one region, then they move. And so then you then are networking with different people in a different area. You know what governance is and everything. So you've got the background, but then it may be done slightly differently in this space. And then some governors come through an organization like Governors for Schools, where you have that support. And others still don't know that organizations like Governors for Schools exist. So they're out there either not knowing that they have skills that schools can benefit from, not knowing that there's a way of them giving back, volunteering in this way, because obviously, even though it's the biggest pool of volunteers, it's also something that is not often spoken about. You hear about volunteering, but there's almost like I don't want to say a stereotype, but almost like an expectation of what volunteering looks like. And I don't think governance necessarily sits in that picture. And so I think those in governance are like, we are volunteers too. We do volunteering too. And then the volunteering side is like, but I don't see you over here, so I don't know where you fit. Like, is governance a corporate thing, or is it a volunteering thing? So, you know, there's still a lot of unknowns out there. There's still a lot of people who do not know. And so when I think of my role in the marketing team and what we do as a sub team of a wider organization, it is constant. It is work that people don't even realize. There are people behind who are thinking of every different outcome and optimizing every opportunity and everything. There's so much work that goes into every little thing that is seen. And especially in marketing, when you think that users of apps, for example, just scroll, but yet there are people who have fed that space so that you can have something to scroll. So I'm now, even though I come from a digital marketing background based on all the other things that I've been involved with that would have, you know, contributed to me getting this role. Now, as part of a team, you know, the planning that goes into things and the organization and the communication channels and everything, sometimes to just get one tweet out, and then internally we are celebrating when it's engaged with, when we're getting retweets, when we're getting likes. But then there's also times when we have no idea how many people just scroll past. But then it's knowing that you have to keep going, you have to go again, because you know, you've got targets to hit, or, you know, you've got a vision that you have and you're working towards it every single day. And so I think there is so much involved in governance, because here I am in a marketing team and yet I'm still operating in a governance space.
Yeah. And something that I didn't appreciate that Governors for Schools actually do, and I can't even remember why I went on the website recently. I think it was because we recently appointed at Warmington, the trust appoints the local governing board chairs.
Yes, yeah.
And the chair, a new chair that was stepping in, young chair, never chaired before. And I was trying to find a session, a webinar for them, you know, to help support their journey. And the platform that we use didn't have like a webinar or an on-demand video. Others are locked behind membership sites.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I went to Governors for Schools, and oh my days, I had no idea that there were so many webinars.
Yeah, webinars, training,
different subjects, all free. And so it goes back to I suppose your job then, and what you were saying about engagement and things, because not everybody, as long as I've been in the governance space,
you didn't know this.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's only when people are searching for things
that
they then find out what you've got to offer. So that's why it's about being continuous, consistent.
Exactly, which is what my point was about. Even if that one tweet or that one post didn't get the engagement that you would have liked, you still have to get up and go the next day or at the next available time slot. You have to keep pushing, because you don't know at what point someone is going to engage with your piece. And so, like, that's why engagement is such a huge part of digital marketing in a wider context. So not just in a governance space, not just in just the role that I do, but what I know as a content creator in terms of my own skill sets that I've built up for the things that I do and my personal branding. It's like you have to be able to get into the mind of a user so that you can then better strategize when you're then putting content out. So you have to understand content consumers first before you can be a content creator, because it's only then as a content creator are you thinking of the consumer.
That is why when we are sitting around that governing board table, our consumers are our children.
Yes, the students.
And so, this is right. And the content is the curriculum.
Yes.
And it's finding new and innovative ways that the content can be delivered to the consumers in a way that they are going to engage with it and understand it and be able to move through the key stages of their education.
Here's another one. Not everyone will probably be comfortable with this, and not everyone will catch it straight away. The school is the platform. The school is the app, because you choose whether you tap on Twitter or whether you engage on Instagram or whether you engage on YouTube or whether you engage on LinkedIn and whatever. And so parents are choosing the school, the platform that they want their child to be in, the environment that they want to be in. How up to date is your space? How current is it? How relevant is it? Have you done the software upgrades?
That is so true. And when I was either delivering a session or had an inquiry meeting this week, and I was talking about, the importance of young governors because they understand the digital space in a way that we just don't, and we being the collective babies of the 1900s, whatever age, I'm a 60s baby, and so that's the reality. And so for governors listening to this, if you don't have social media clearly on your school development plan, your academy development plan, your
skills audit,
right, just whatever
put it there.
Absolutely,
your skills audit at a strategic level. Your skills audit. When we talked about auditing the skills audit, think of the skill sets that are relevant, that are needed today in the 21st century. We have been in the 21st century for 22 whole years. We're in the 23rd year of the 21st century. The 21st century isn't new anymore. We are the decades of, when they talk about the 1920s, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s and everything. These are the 20s. My granddad wasn't alive in the 1920s. He's alive in the 2020s though. So the 20s, this is the only 20s decade that he's going to know, and he's 81. So anyone younger than him, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s are being set up now. So people say the 21st century, don't think, oh, it's a new phrase. No, it's actually outdated because we have been here for over 2 decades. So in terms of your skills audit, as well as the skill sets that are clearly still needed, the pillars, in terms of finance, architecture, when you think of capital builds and how that supports the wider schools, if they're making structural changes to their physical space, having someone with an architectural background helps because they can ask certain questions that the school just may not have thought of. Remember, those in your school, your staff and your teaching staff, their expertise at the top of their list is education, teaching and learning. So all the other skills that are not teaching and learning, bring them to the table to your governing body. And social media, the digital space, is a skill set. It's a technology is a skill set that is fundamental in the 21st century. So that should be on your list of skills that will benefit the school on your skills audit, so that you can see if anyone around the body has those skills or they do not, because they could, but they just don't see that it's important.
Absolutely. And I was watching something recently on Instagram about AI, and I'm not going to go into the topic now, but I've actually used AI just as a test, where you can put in a series of commands and it can write for you. It is absolutely mind-blowing. And as Gary Vee said, it doesn't matter whether schools embrace it or not. It's going to happen. Because it's already in existence.
Yes,
it's already here. So as much as there are minuses, there are so many pluses to social media. But what I want to sort of, I suppose, summarize with is maybe a way of increasing volunteers in the space is increasing the promotion of roles within the governance space, because as you said, it's like when I hear young people, especially young boys, say they want to play football, you know, they want to be a footballer. We know that you know, it's 1% of the 1% of the 1% who actually make it, not because the other 99.999 aren't good enough, but because there's only it's like a funnel. There's a lot going in the top and only a few coming out at the bottom. So, you know, the reality is, if we can, you know, on careers days and things like that, talk about governance. If you're talking about somebody wanting to get into law, how's about getting into governance? Because governance and law are like sisters or siblings, right? They're connected. So just like going back to the football thing, if you can't be a footballer, then there's been a physiotherapist. There's so many other things you could do. There's so many other things you can write, and the same around governance. 100%. So, you know, and I do absolutely believe it's important that anybody working in the governance space should also be a governor in a school setting as well, or in an academy, so that they can not only see the work that they're doing, but the impact.
It's the insight
you have.
Impact, yes, and also insight.
And the insight, absolutely.
Because what I found amazing about coming to Governors for Schools is how there's so much knowledge that you get as a governor that that you don't realize until you become one. And so I must have said something without even thinking, like, really the weight of what I said. And someone else in the team was like, oh, it's so good to have someone who is a governor in a secondary school, because a lot of the governors that are here are governors in primary schools. So that's what I'm saying, by a different perspective. So what I'm saying is, like, because you don't know what you know until it comes out. That's my point. And so me wearing this new hat, I didn't know that me being a governor in a secondary school would actually feed my role and also support the other members of my team in knowing the mechanics of governance at a different level in education. And likewise, I've only had 1 year in primary school education governance. So from my team members, my colleagues, my co-workers, I'm learning more about whether it's like how to market to those who are interested in becoming governors in primary school, or the things that primary school needs to think about that secondary school don't need to think about in the same way. And so, I think my point is, overall, whatever roles you have, talk about them. Whatever roles you have, talk about them. Because before I became the digital marketing executive for Governors for Schools, when someone asks me what I did, at some point I will mention that I'm a school governor. I because it's something I do. It's a part of who I am. It's how I show up in a different space. So now I have this new hat, which has kind of become the topic for this episode. But I think the overall point is, talk about the roles you have, because now when I meet people moving forward with this new chapter that started, and they ask me what I do, and I can say digital marketing, I can say Governors for Schools specifically, because that's the organization I work for. But also I can talk about being a governor. I can also talk about being a private tutor. So then it becomes more normal to have it in dialogue, in everyday dialogue. Let governors, and people know what it is. Exactly.
And people know what it is. Exactly. And in addition to that, I think as governors, we should also talk more about what we do outside of our governing role, because I'm sitting here as you're talking, trying to think of a situation, trying to think of my existing governing body and trust board that I'm on, how how much do I know about my individual colleagues around the table? What roles they play, what jobs they do, what experience they're bringing to the table. And especially if you're new coming in, you don't always know who's round the table. And even when they do the round robin,
it's not enough.
It's usually it's just their name, and maybe the role that they play on the governing board.
There we go.
But not, and
who they are.
There are so many networking opportunities around that table. But we don't know who's around that table.
And so I think my piece of advice would be, as a newly employed person, because as I said, my history is being self-employed. What I have been enjoying, and what I have learned, or one of the many things I've learned so far already, is that regardless of what type of organization you're in, regardless of what kind of business or company you work for or you lead, when you are thinking about your team building activities, team building strategies, build in learning more about your actual team members. So not just doing something that kind of brings you together, but an opportunity to really know who that person is and what they do outside of how you engage with them on a day-to-day basis. Because I think it will answer the kind of question that you were asking in terms of, what do my fellow school governors, my school governor colleagues, what do they do? So when you're having team away days, find out what their other interests are, what their skill sets are, or like, for example, the role that I have at Governors for Schools is part-time, but my colleagues will engage with me about what I did on the days that I wasn't in the office, because then that helps to kind of know what else that I do, what kind of makes up Olivia and her being, and the same I do with them. It's in your engagement about, obviously you can have your boundaries at work and stuff, and you don't need to share everything with everyone. But if someone that you have a friendly connection with asks you what you did on the weekend, or what else do you do outside of here and stuff, it's a part of that togetherness, and it actually will bring about more belonging in that space as well, because you feel like people see you. People see you and they hear you, and they're interested by you and what value you could contribute, because you don't know if by just talking about what it is that you do, whether you're talking in a non-governance space about being a governor, or you're talking in a governance space about everything else you do, you don't know where someone may hear that and think, okay, like moving forward, you're then able to lead on something or be able to offer some advice or contribution that then just helps to elevate everything else. And that's what I think people need to do more: talk more transparently, be more present in the dialogue with the people that you come into connection with. Because there's so much to learn from others, so much. Otherwise, you only really know 1% of 100 people in the room.
And it is important, again, going back to who we're all in this for, which is the children, and preparing them for the world beyond the school gates. And that world is made up of different careers, different professions, different people. And so the more that they can hear those things and see those things,
it widens their possibilities.
Absolutely.
I say that because from the work I've done in the past in terms of confidence building for young people, in usually those in a full-time education or under the age of 25, or raising aspirations, and young people are actually either not accustomed to or not comfortable with talking about themselves. So when you are 15, 16 years old, and you have to write your first personal statement to apply to a sixth form, or apply to post-16 education, or apply for an apprenticeship, or apply for your first part-time job, they are stuck. They are stuck. They like, I don't know what's right. And before you know it, you've got hundreds of students from the same school setting writing the same three words. Like, I'm confident, I'm a team builder or a team player, you know, just like they've just pulled a word from a vocab list, from an adjective list. And it's just like, this is because they're not used to talking about themselves. But that could also be influence in terms of the space that they're in. Obviously, boundaries are important, but recognizing that we are human beings first. So just get comfortable with talking about who you are, but adults need to do it first so that children know it's okay.
Because there are so many adults who are not comfortable talking about themselves.
Talking about themselves. Be proud of what you do. Be proud of who you are. And don't make anything you do sound like it's an inferior thing compared to someone else. Because who are you comparing yourself to?
Absolutely.
Who? You are the only one who has walked your journey, had your path. There are things that you've done, experienced. There is value there. And that's why when I'm then doing my diversity of age workshops and I'm talking about age, I'm saying age is way more than a number. Way more than a number. Because there's lived experience in that 18-year-old. There's lived experience in that 21-year-old. There's lived experience in that 23-year-old, 27, 45, 38. And so it's speaking to the experience of the person. Because you could meet 20-year-olds and they'll all be different.
Absolutely. I was doing so because I do executive coaching, and I was coaching somebody who is literally working for a multi-billion-dollar organization. It's a international organization, and you know, just saying to them, I could get you into a school as a governor tomorrow.
Yeah.
Their job is employee engagement.
Ooh.
And I know, right? I was thinking, do you know how many schools and trusts are crying out for somebody with HR? Imagine employee. That is their job, employee engagement.
And you know what kind of thing that comes to mind? What came to mind immediately when you said that employee engagement? Staff well-being. Because we need to look after our teachers. We need
one of the main responsibilities that this individual have is sense of belonging.
Oh my gosh, didn't I just say belonging and belonging?
That's exactly.
Come on now.
That's what made me think about it. And until I connected with them because I was invited to speak as a speaker, keynote at one of their events, and I always mention becoming a governor in no matter what the topic, no matter what the organization, I will always talk about giving back and giving back as a volunteer, as a governor. And so that resonated with this individual, but the entrepreneurship thing resonated more. And so they came to me on that. And so I'm delivering my coaching based on the entrepreneurship, but I'm still talking about governorship. And I'm saying to them, if you became a governor, what you would learn strategically about how to manage your business will be,
that is so true. You're so true. There's so much to gain.
Can't pay for it. There's so much to gain.
I honestly think one of the key things that kind of set me on this path that I'm on now was being a governor. Like I would say being a governor, especially because I first entered the education governance space at the age of 23. I am now 29, which kind of scares me because I still remember being that 23-year-old and attending my first meeting, not just to attend and learn and observe, no, to chair.
Not to chair.
So I remember being that 23-year-old, now being 29 and hearing about others who are in their early 20s. I get excited every time I see someone who has become a governor at that age, because I think, wow, the education space, current and future generations could have you for at least 20 years. Because if you think people are becoming governors in their 40s or late 30s or in their 50s or their 60s, imagine you become a governor in your 20s and you love it and you find value in it so much, and you're able to give and keep giving as you move forward, and everything else you learn outside of being a governor feeds you to be even more of service to others. Then you're in that space for 20, 30, 40 years. You know how many lives you can change?
You will impact
how much
exactly
difference you can make. Honestly, if people cannot hear it in my voice, if you are not a governor, please become one for your sake. And it will have a ripple effect on everyone else around you. Because I read a Facebook comment this week of a woman who said that she says she's not a governor, but her daughter's one, and it sounds so interesting. The dialogue is being opened up even in families, where families are able to have that conversation and talk. Teachers, I feel like, have an opportunity to be heard more, because when teachers become governors in spaces that are not the schools that they're an employee of, then they get to open their own landscape, and then they get to have an impact in a different way. I tell you, there's nothing like giving back. Nothing like it. Absolutely. Honestly, I could talk about being a governor all day, every day for the rest of my life. And that's why I love the role I'm in, because it gives me a legitimate reason to just talk about education and governance. Honestly, it probably sounds like, hold on, is this woman for real? Is she really this passionate about? I am. I really am. I have been like this for over 5 years. Like, I say over 5 years because when I first started, I had no idea where I would end up, where I would be, what I would learn. But, when I really reflect, and more as I move forward, I'm intentional about reflecting. And when I think of the things I've been able to do or be involved in, or just knowing that as a private tutor, when I'm in that 90-minute session talking about maths, I only have that one student with me. And if that gives me so much, just being able to help that one child, being a governor helps me to support hundreds, thousands. It's more indirect because I don't always have direct engagement with the student, but I know a question I ask around that table, or a comment I make, or praising the senior leadership team for something that they've accomplished or that they've worked hard to achieve, or, just being able to give something that then contributes to the whole. It's like, okay, this is my purpose, or this feeds into my purpose. And I get to govern differently to the way the other 10 or 12 people around the table govern. But the vision is shared to make the lives of children better, to improve educational outcomes, to make sure that the citizens of our societies that we live in, and the people that continue to move through our communities, that do better, and they can move further, faster with our support. They are not left on their own. They are safe, they are looked after, they are elevated, they are uplifted. Honestly, just be a governor, please. Honestly, please, this is my outcry.
Okay. So what is your takeaway, Olivia?
Just become a governor, please. Like, honestly. But my takeaway is to really pace myself through new chapters, continue to stay open to learning from others, and really recognizing the value of what I do today. Because if I value what I do today, if I feel like what I'm doing today is a seed planted, I'm very much someone who believes in planting seeds, then it means that I'm constantly evaluating myself and ensuring that I'm staying topped up, but also feeding forward. Because I know some years back, we as a pair, as a duo, we actually stopped using the word feedback.
Yeah.
We use the word feed forward. And how I take that term is, you often ask that question when, whether it's an icebreaker or something, about if you could tell your 16-year-old self, if you could tell your 25-year-old self, if you could tell your younger self something, what would it be? I always have the same response. I don't think of what I would tell my younger self, because that's kind of creating an impossible situation of me going back. Exactly. Yeah. So instead, I will find someone younger than me to feed into. So then they are my 16, 18, 25-year-old self. And so then all I hope is that anyone younger than me moves further, faster along their journey, so that by the time they are my age, they are further along than where I was when they reach my age, if that makes sense. So absolutely. I'm now a 29-year-old trying to find a 23-year-old, because I know what decision I made at 23 and where it took me. So I'm thinking, okay, let me not just find someone at 23, let me find someone who's 16, because then it's then allowing me to move forward myself, but elevating others along with me. So my takeaway is to continue to plant seeds, continue to keep my glass topped up, recognizing what boundaries I need to set and uphold, but not stopping the dialogue, continuing the dialogue. I will keep talking about the things that I do that contribute to who I am, because who I am is someone who is purposeful, who is people-centered, who is driven for positive change, positive impact. And so I'm just finding different ways of doing that. I'm finding different ways of showing up how I wish to show up based on who I am. So continue to doing the work on myself and hoping that others do their own self-evaluation and say, you know what? There's more work to do. And I know exactly how I can contribute to a different space or a wider space or the space I'm already in.
Wow.
I'm done.
I don't even know how to top that. I can't top that. I don't even know what to say. Other than my takeaway is to continue to pull up.
Yes.
To continue to pull up as I rise up in this space in terms of my knowledge, my experience, just continue to pull up. I met today for the first time an ECT, an early careers teacher, young, because they're getting married, and I was helping them to plan their wedding, but she's just started as a year one teacher in a primary school, and only because she's getting married and that is stressful enough, the only reason why I didn't say to her is, you need to become a governor. Is because she's already stressed.
She's got a lot going on already.
She's got a lot going on. But it's almost one of the first things that comes out of my mouth when I meet anybody new of any background, of any profession, whatever. Are you a governor? Because I know that no matter how many we have in the space, there's always room for more.
Oh,
there's always room for more.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
So that's my takeaway.
Oh, that felt deep, man. That felt deep. I feel like I need to breathe after this episode. I need to just woosah.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please rate, review, and subscribe via your preferred streaming platform. The Governors Podcast is a brand of the legal entity Education Governance Solutions Limited and a free training resource for anyone. So if you know someone who is interested in becoming a governor or a trustee, please share this podcast with them. And if you'd like to get in touch with us directly with questions or comments, then drop us an email at thegovernorspodcast@gmail.com.
You can also follow us on social media platforms at The Governors Podcast. Let's connect.